My cute neighbor's daughter dared me to take her mom out, and neither of us saw what that dare would cost, or what it would heal. I'm Jake Bennett. I run my late father's furniture shop next door to a widow named Emily Dawson. But it wasn't Emily who started this. It was her 7-year-old daughter, Lucy, the little girl who noticed her mother crying at night when she thought no one was watching, and decided a grown man's dare was the only fix big enough for it. I said yes to a dare from a child. But what I found waiting behind Emily's front door wasn't just a lonely neighbor. It was a woman who'd buried an entire life she never told anyone about, and a secret that had 4 years and one closing door left on it. Who was Emily really, before grief made her small? What was she hiding in that house that even her own daughter didn't know? And when the truth came out, would it bring these two together, or cost Jake the one thing he wasn't ready to lose? The smell hits me before anything else does. Sawdust, old varnish, the sharp bite of wood glue drying in the afternoon heat. That smell is my whole life now. It's the last thing my father ever gave me, packed into the walls of a shop with his name still painted over the door. Bennett and Son. I never changed it. I don't think I ever will. 2 years since he died, and I still catch myself listening for his footsteps in the back room. I was sanding down an old church pew that Tuesday afternoon when the bell over my shop door jingled, and in walked the only person on this street who visits me uninvited and unafraid. Lucy Dawson. 7 years old, missing a front tooth, carrying herself like she owns the whole block. She climbed up onto her usual stool without asking, the way she always does, and watched me work for a while, swinging her legs, saying nothing. That silence should have warned me. Lucy is never silent unless she's building up to something. "Mr. Jake," she said finally. "I have a dare for you." I kept sanding. "Is that right? You have to take my mom on a date." My hands stopped moving on the wood. I laughed, the way grown-ups laugh when a kid says something they think is cute and impossible. "That's a pretty big dare, kiddo." But she didn't laugh with me. Her face stayed still, serious, older than 7 years should ever have to look. "It's not a joke," she said. "Mom cries at night. She thinks I don't hear her. But I hear her. And you fix everything in this whole shop. So I figured you should fix that too." I didn't have a joke ready for that. Nothing about the way she said it felt like a game. I knew Emily Dawson the way you know a neighbor. A wave over the fence. A borrowed cup of sugar. Her husband Ryan had died on the highway 4 years back, and since then she'd become the kind of quiet that people mistake for peace, when really it's just exhaustion wearing a calm face. She worked long shifts at the hospital billing office. She came home late. The porch light stayed on for her every single night, and I never once thought about what that light was actually waiting for. "It's not that simple," I told Lucy. "Grown-up stuff doesn't fix with glue and clamps." "You won't know unless you ask," she said, and something about the flatness of that answer landed harder than it should have coming from a 7-year-old. I might have let it die right there. Filed it away under sweet but no, the way I filed away most things that asked me to feel something again. Except 3 nights later, closing up the shop late, I saw the kitchen light burning next door, and I saw something through that window I wasn't supposed to see. Lucy's school project was ruined. Some kind of poster board volcano, paint smeared, cardboard bent flat, wrecked the night before it was due. Emily had just walked in from a double shift, still in her scrubs, dead on her feet, the kind of tired that sits in a person's shoulders. She didn't yell. She didn't sigh. She got down on that kitchen floor in her work clothes and started rebuilding it by hand, folding new cardboard, mixing paint from what she had in the cabinet, patient as anything in the world, at 11 o'clock at night, after 12 hours on her feet. Nobody was watching her do that. She wasn't performing kindness for an audience. That's the moment you learn who someone really is, not when they're being seen, but when they think no one is. Something moved in my chest that I hadn't felt move in 2 years. The next morning, before I could talk myself out of it, I stood on Emily's front porch at 7 a.m., heart going harder than it had any right to over a knock on a door. "Jake!" She looked at me like I'd knocked with the wrong address. "Everything okay?" "This is going to sound strange," I said, "but your daughter dared me to ask you to dinner." I watched her face brace itself, the way people brace for a joke made at their expense. "That's not why I'm asking, though," I said quickly. I saw you rebuild that volcano last night. Full shift, dead on your feet, and you still made sure she wasn't embarrassed walking into school today. I've spent 2 years telling myself I don't need anything else in my life. Then I saw that, through your kitchen window, and it stopped being true. She went quiet for a long moment, studying me the way you'd study a stranger claiming to know something private about you. Lucy dared you, she said slowly. Not asked. Dared. She takes her dares very seriously, I said. There are rules I don't fully understand yet. And for the first time since I'd known her, Emily Dawson smiled like she meant it. Friday, she said. I'd need to find a sitter. I had no idea, standing on that porch, that saying yes to a child's dare was about to lead me straight into a secret Emily had been hiding for 4 years. One with a door that was about to close for good, whether I ever found out about it or not. Before Friday came, I have to tell you something. And if you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on that notification bell before we go any further. My ex told me I'd never make it to 6,000 subscribers on this channel. I'd love for you to prove her wrong. Now back to Emily. Friday arrived slower than any day had in 2 years. I spent the morning in the shop pretending to work, running the same piece of sandpaper over a table leg that was already smooth, my mind somewhere else entirely. I picked her up at 6. She'd traded her scrubs for a soft blue dress, hair down instead of pulled back, and for a second, standing in her doorway, she didn't look like the tired woman from the kitchen window. She looked like someone I was meeting for the very first time. Lucy stood behind her in the hallway, practically vibrating with pride, mouthing the words "I told you so" like she'd just won a bet with the universe itself. Behave, Emily told her. I'm always behaved, Lucy said, which was, generously, a stretch. I took her to Miller's, the little diner by the lake that had been standing since before either of us was born. All cracked red vinyl booths and a jukebox that only half worked. I'd braced myself for small talk. What I got instead was the easiest conversation I'd had since my father's funeral. Emily listened like she was actually hearing you, not just waiting for her turn to speak. She noticed things nobody else noticed. The way our waiter's hands shook a little. The way I lined up my fork and knife square to the table edge without thinking about it. You do that when you're working something out, she said. Line things up. Shop habit, I said. My dad did it too. He used to say wood remembers every crack you rush past. Slow hands, honest joints, or the whole thing comes out crooked. Tell me about him. So I did. I hadn't spoken about my father like that to another living soul in 2 years. Came easy with her. Somehow, sitting in that old booth with the lake going dark outside the window. She didn't rush to fill the quiet parts with comfort. She just let them sit there. That's a rarer kindness than people realize. What about you? I asked eventually. Lucy said you cry sometimes. At night, when she's supposed to be asleep. Something flickered behind her eyes, caught, almost. She turned her water glass a slow quarter turn on the table, the way people do when they're deciding how much truth a person has earned. Ryan's been gone 4 years, she said. I don't cry about losing him as much as I used to. I think I cry because sometimes I remember I used to want things. For myself. And I don't remember what that felt like anymore. What did you want? The diner felt smaller all of a sudden. Just her voice, and the hum of the broken jukebox, and whatever she was about to hand me. I was 1 semester from finishing my architecture degree when Ryan died, she said. I had a firm ready to sponsor my licensing hours. Then there was a funeral, and a mortgage, and a 4-year-old who needed breakfast every single morning. And none of that felt like something a blueprint could wait for. She shrugged, like the shrug could close the subject. That was a different life. It belongs to somebody else now. I didn't say the easy thing back. I didn't tell her that was a shame, or that things happen, or any of the soft nothing people say to end a conversation instead of sitting inside it. I just asked, do you still have the drawings? She looked at me like no one had asked her that in 4 years. Why does that matter to you? Because you talk about a person who doesn't exist anymore, I said. And you say it like you buried her on purpose. I don't think you did. I think you just ran out of hours in the day to miss her. She didn't answer that. She looked out the window at the lake instead. And for a long moment I thought I'd said too much, too soon. and ruin the whole evening. Then she said, quiet, nobody's asked me about the drawings in 4 years. I drove her home after, and we sat in my truck outside her house a while, neither of us in any hurry to end it, the porch light glowing gold against the dark. Thank you, she said. I forget sometimes that I'm allowed to just have a good night. Not a schedule. Not a shift. Just a night. Tell Lucy she won her dare, I said. Emily almost smiled. She didn't win anything, she said. I did. I sat in that driveway a long time after she went inside, staring at her porch light, thinking about a stack of drawings somewhere in that house that she hadn't looked at in 4 years, and I had no idea yet just how close that door was to closing for good, or what it was going to cost both of us to open it again. We saw each other quietly all that summer. Slow, careful, the way two people move when they've both spent years convincing themselves they didn't need anything more. I'd come by after closing the shop and fix whatever needed fixing around her place. A loose porch step, a sticking screen door, and Emily would tell me to stop treating her house like a job site, and I'd tell her I didn't know how to sit still in a house without finding something to repair. Both of us knew that wasn't really about the porch step. Lucy, for her part, walked around all summer looking like she'd personally solved world peace. One evening in late July, under her kitchen sink fixing a slow drain, Emily mentioned it almost sideways, like it didn't matter. An old professor of hers had emailed. A firm 2 states over was reopening a licensing review track for people who'd left the field mid-career. The window closed in 8 weeks. She said it the way you mention the weather. You should apply, I said. Jake, I have a 7-year-old and a full-time job. You have a 7-year-old, a full-time job, and an unfinished degree that's been sitting in a drawer for 4 years, I said. That's not the same as can't. 3 nights later, I found her at her kitchen table past midnight, an old portfolio spread out in front of her. Sketches, blueprints, a whole folded-up life she'd never fully put away. You weren't supposed to see this, she said quietly. Lucy left the porch light on for me. Same as always. I sat down across from her. Emily, this is good work. This is really good work. It's 4 years old. So finish it. She cried that night, quietly, the way she did everything. Then she applied. And 3 weeks later, she got in. The first review weekend, I took Lucy for the whole stretch. Pancakes for dinner, a blanket fort, a game of Go Fish she cheated at so badly it became the whole joke of the weekend. But the second weekend, my phone rang past 11 at night. Emily crying, really crying. I can't do this, Jake, she said. I failed the structural exam today. There's a kid in my review group who's 24 and looks at me like I wandered into the wrong building. I gave up a weekend with my daughter to fail a test. I should just come home. Everything easy in me wanted to say come home. I miss you. Forget the blueprints. That would have been the simple answer. It also would have been the wrong one. You didn't fail because you're too old, I said. You failed because it's been 4 years and you're relearning a language you used to speak fluently. Did the 24-year-old pass? A pause. No, nobody passed. They're curving it. Then you're not behind. You're keeping pace with people half your responsibilities while raising a daughter and holding a full-time job on the side. That doesn't make you slow. That makes you the toughest person in that room. She laughed, wet and reluctant. Say the thing. The wood thing. Slow hands, honest joints. I said. You don't rush past the crack. You go back and fix it right. That's exactly what you're doing right now. Go finish this. She finished the program in December. Passed her licensing review in January. The firm hired her 3 weeks later, not 2 states away like we'd feared, but at a small satellite office 40 minutes from home, close enough that most nights she was back at her own kitchen table. Blueprints spread out where that old portfolio used to sit gathering dust. When Lucy found out her mom got the job, she turned to me with the gravest expression a 7-year-old has ever worn in the history of the world. See, she said. I told you the dare would work. You were right, I told her. You're better at this than I am. I know, she said, completely unbothered by her own genius, and went back to her cartoons like she hadn't just rearranged 3 lives. Emily and I were married the following June, in the yard behind my father's shop, under the sign that still reads Bennett and Son. Lucy walked down the aisle first, scattering flower petals with the focus of someone defusing a bomb, and insisted on standing right beside me during the vows because, in her words, I dared this. I get to watch it happen up close. At the reception, she climbed up onto a chair. Nobody could stop her, and gave her own toast in the serious voice she reserves for very important announcements. I dared Mr. Jake to take my mom on a date because she cries at night when she thinks I'm asleep, and he fixes everything, she told the whole yard. I didn't know it would actually work. I just didn't want my mom to be sad forever. She wasn't wrong about any of it. These days, when I close up the shop at night, the house I drive home to isn't quiet anymore. There's a drafting table in the corner with a half-finished blueprint on it, an 8-year-old who still brings me broken toys on Tuesdays, and a wife who reminds me, more than she probably knows, that some things aren't broken just because they sat in a drawer a long time. Sometimes they're just waiting on someone patient enough to fix the joint instead of rushing past the crack. My father was right about wood. He was right about people too. You don't force what's been set down too long. You go slow, you fix it honest, and you let it hold weight again. So here's what I want to ask you before you go, because I think about it more than almost anything else in my life. What dream have you folded up and put in a drawer, telling yourself it belonged to someone you used to be? And is there someone in your life right now, quietly waiting for you to ask them about it? The way Lucy asked me? Because sometimes the bravest thing a person can do isn't chasing something new. It's opening a door you've been too afraid to open again.